All right, unusual guest joining us here in the chat room. She has nearly 200,000 Twitter followers, millions of believers around the world. Crowds gathered to hear her speak. She says she communicates directly with God. Her name is Vassula Ryden. And Vassula, welcome to the chat room.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for having me with you.
Tell me, how does God speak with you?
Well, it's now 27 years ago, and I was somebody who never prayed or even looked and searched for God, away from my own church. And this is how it happened. It was I was writing that moment a grocery list to give to my domestic so that he goes and buys the food. I had people coming that night. And suddenly there, where I was doing this grocery list, I had a manifestation of my angel. I saw him in the way that we can see interiorly. It was so obvious. And he touched my wrist, my right wrist, and placed my hand on the paper, like saying to me, write what I'm going to tell you.
Well, we actually have some video of you handwriting these messages because you believe that God is talking with you directly and that you write his message, his spoken word, down, and that he's using you as a vessel. There are, Vassula, a lot of people are going to doubt your story. They're listening to it right now and they're saying, no way. There are some who probably will believe it. What do you say to the people who just don't believe that this is happening?
Well, there will be those that will not believe, and I understand them. I mean, it's something very, very big. So one has to be careful and skeptic, and I understand the skeptics. But when they will see and they hear my story, and see what I have received as messages for our times from God. Why not? I mean, God can speak whenever he wishes. But of course, many people will say, and who are you? I mean, why me? I was just then a housewife, here I am. And then God manifested himself. He can manifest himself whenever he wished to for our times. And I had the experience of God. I mean, it was obvious.
Now, 500,000 people came out to hear you speak in the Philippines. You're starting to get a global following that really people do want to hear what you have to say. Your new book is called Heaven is Real and So is Hell. You believe that you've witnessed both of those?
Yes, I've seen visions because the Lord wanted to give me the visions of heaven, that heaven really exists, and of hell, because many people like to hear only of heaven but not hell. And so that's why I had those visions of hell and heaven, but also the manifestation of who God is actually. How is he God? How is God? Because many people say, yeah, we know God, but just from a book, by reading the book. And some of them have intellectualized God, so they cannot approach God. But the way he approached me, and I say to people, he is approachable. He is like a father, more than a father. Because when he spoke to me, he was more like as if I knew him, part of my family, so paternal, so loving, so merciful. And that really knocked me out because I expected some God who is just severe and is going to condemn us.
Yeah, an interesting perspective, and certainly one that many will want to hear. Your book is called Heaven is Real and So is Hell. You have a book signing tonight at Oak Brook at Barnes & Noble at 7 p.m. Vassula Ryden, welcome to Chicago, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you very much, Anna.
Susanna, Rochelle, you hear this, and you know that a lot of people are looking at their TVs and they're saying, well, no, there's no way this woman communicates with God. She just thinks she does.
You know what? Thank you for being here. I'm the daughter of a minister, and I have a very close personal relationship with the God of my understanding. I respectfully am skeptical. I've done some research on some of your readings, Vassula. I have a question for you because you talk a lot about God speaking to you about things that are happening right now, in timely topics. You're in Chicago right now. Has God spoken to you with a message for the people of Chicago on what we are supposed to do about the crime?
Well, that book that I have written, and it was just inspired by God who gave me the messages. He speaks to everyone. He says to everyone, come as you are.
Yes.
All of you, come as you are, and do not wait till you become saints to come to me, and I will turn you into a saint.
Okay.
So he wants everybody out of his mercy to come to him. The message, you know, is 27 years old. I mean, 27 years I've been receiving these messages. They have been studied by great theologians in mystical theology, and they see that everything is divine.
Some say that you did predict the 9/11 situation because you talked about, or you wrote about, the Twin Towers collapsing and things like that. So yes. I understand that you don't, she doesn't hear about everything, so maybe not just crime or just something else, but you do say that you get messages.
I do, and there are many warnings from God, because out of his mercy he is warning us. He's losing so many of us, and he wants us to turn to him and remember him and who we are. We come from the King of Kings, and we are the daughters of the Most and sons of the Most High. So we should not forget our nobility.
It's interesting because there is so much of resurgence of people looking at faith again, maybe a renewed faith. The Bible is the most watched show on television right now. You've got a situation where a new pope is inspiring new hope for many Catholics considering going back to their church. But you're not necessarily embraced by mainstream religion. You've been kicked out of churches before, haven't you?
Yes, but you know, I've met this pope now, the recent one, Francis. I met him as a cardinal, and he was very open to me, and he wouldn't have received me if he thought I was just faking the whole thing. I met Cardinal Ratzinger before he became Pope as well, 3 months before he became Pope, because he wanted to meet me when he found out about me, and it was so controversial. In the end, he made a study about my case, and as it was positive, he received me in his private saloon.
All right, Vassula Ryden, again, thanks for joining us and sharing your story. Yes. Susanna, where do you lie on this whole thing as you hear that story? What do you think?
One thing I just want to ask about is you and I were raised in the same faith, which is Greek Orthodox, and I know that in our church we believe that people who well, first of all, there's a lot of skepticism about being able to speak with God, but even so, we feel people who have these kinds of messages shouldn't profit off of them. So what happens with the book sales, or how do you give back everything you make? What happens to the money that comes in?
All the money goes to the charity houses that we have around the world, like 25 of them now, and we feed the poor, and we clothe them and give medicine as well. For myself, I take nothing of that book, nothing. I've never taken anything which, the other book that has the messages as well. I've never taken any money, and I'm not interested in that. Right. I want the good of people. I want to give them hope through what I received, because God is calling us to give us hope.
All right, Vassula, thank you.
Thank you
so much. It's a really interesting story. I don't think I've met anyone quite like her before.
Neither have I.
And I'm sure she'll have a very polarizing reaction from everyone watching. So thank you for sharing your story. 9:20 is the time. We're back with more Good Day Chicago in a moment.